Eccoci qua in diretta, buongiorno, buongiorno a tutti. Il nostro Innovation Breakfast, momento di incontro fra il Gruppo Credem e il mondo dell'innovazione, eccezionalmente non di venerdì, ma di martedì, perché abbiamo degli ospiti e insomma abbiamo dovuto un po' arrangiare questo orario e questo giorno piuttosto che questo orario. Mi chiamo Pier Giorgio Grossi, faccio parte del team di innovazione di Credem e appunto questo è il nostro Innovation Breakfast in edizione molto particolare, lo so che lo dico sempre, ma oggi presenteremo il primo frutto della nostra iniziativa di Corporate Venture, quindi questa iniziativa in cui noi andiamo a cercare e a investire in startup che siano utili per Credem, per il gruppo, no? Quindi per allargare i nostri orizzonti, per imparare nuove tecnologie o sperimentare nuovi servizi. Vado un attimino in inglese per salutare i nostri amici, so I will switch to English just for a few seconds, just to say good morning or good evening to everyone watching from abroad. I will talk in Italian just for a couple of minutes and then get back to English so everyone can understand. So, dicevo, oggi una puntata un po' strana appunto perché i nostri ospiti sono collegati dagli Stati Uniti, oltretutto è praticamente mezzanotte là, quindi veramente li ringrazio per questo. Per introdurre questa prima iniziativa di Corporate Venture, direi che ho bisogno dei nostri sponsor sul palco, quindi le persone con le quali abbiamo fatto questo progetto e con le quali abbiamo deciso di fare questa partecipazione, quindi Paolo Magnani e Andrea Dolsa. Direi che lascio lo stage a voi in modo che possiate raccontare un attimino di Nunam e di questa iniziativa con Franklin. Direi che Paolo inizi tu.
Per Giorgio, I start in English. Good morning, everyone, from me too. Good night to Margaret and Shankar. I am very happy and proud to be here with you today. Let me begin by explaining why we invested in Nunam. Our strategy is to invest in startups and fintechs that will allow us to integrate our existing business model with innovations and ideas. The wealth management business is undergoing a strong and rapid change. For this reason, we want to work together with Nunam in order to allow our portfolio managers to use alternative data for their analysis and improve our thematic and ESG mutual funds quality. This is just a first step in a long journey that we are beginning together with Franklin Templeton, and we aim to be increasingly active to these issues in the future. I'd like to thank all those who worked, even during the month of August, while on holiday, maybe under the beach umbrella, to make all this possible. Thank you. Riassumo, I switch in Italia. Ho spiegato per quale motivo abbiamo deciso di investire in Nunam. La nostra strategia nel mondo del wealth management è quello di investire in startup e fintech che ci permettono di integrare il nostro modello di business esistente con innovazioni e nuove idee, anche perché il business del wealth management è in costante e veloce cambiamento. Per questa ragione la prima intenzione di investire in Nunam era proprio per stabilire e capire e permettere ai nostri portfolio manager di usare dati alternativi, quindi di intelligenza artificiale e machine learning, per migliorare la qualità dei nostri fondi tematici e ESG. È l'inizio di un percorso che vogliamo portare avanti con Franklin Templeton, che grazie al loro incubatore abbiamo avuto la possibilità di investire in Nunam, e quindi nel prossimo futuro speriamo che questa sia la prima di una serie molto importante. Ho anche ringraziato in particolare tutti quelli che hanno lavorato a questo progetto, anche perché ci abbiamo lavorato durante il mese di agosto, qualcuno anche probabilmente con i piedi sotto l'ombrello. Tutto questo è stato possibile grazie a un lavoro di squadra con l'innovazione, con il SGR, con Shankar, il team di Franklin Templeton, veramente molto importante. Andrea, please go ahead.
Sì, grazie Paolo. Come direbbe una pubblicità, what else? So Paolo, as always, as usual, has said quite everything. Anyway, just to start with the idea. What is it, which is the idea that we use to start the collaboration and to explore the artificial intelligence, cioè perché abbiamo deciso di iniziare questa collaborazione e cercare qualcosa sull'intelligenza artificiale. You know that the asset manager world is changing every day and is going very, very quick into the future. So we need to explore the artificial intelligence. We read every day about artificial intelligence in newspaper, etc. So we have to explore this world. We don't know if it will work. We'll try, but we have to try. Cioè, sostanzialmente non sappiamo se ovviamente tutto il discorso di intelligenza artificiale funzionerà e come funzionerà, però è un qualcosa che noi dobbiamo esplorare per essere sempre diciamo live nel mondo dell'asset management. So we start this collaboration. We have a lot of ideas, and we start with Shankar and his team, and so thanks to Shankar and Steven, that are the two major shareholder of this company and our principal partner in this journey. Quindi ho ringraziato sostanzialmente Shankar e Steven, che voi non lo vedete, ma è l'altro ragazzo, insomma chiamo tutti i ragazzi che lavorerà con noi, e vediamo, speriamo che questa collaborazione porti ovviamente i suoi frutti. So don't stall every other time to our guest, so I leave to Pier G, and see you later if there are any questions.
Ok, grazie Paolo, grazie Andrea. Penso che insomma abbiate capito qual è il motivo di business per cui abbiamo fatto questa iniziativa. Come detto, sono iniziative di investimento in un'ottica industriale, quindi come avete visto per fare del business. Le domande, ora stiamo per dare la palla ai nostri ospiti, le domande le fate voi, come sempre nei commenti. Se non riuscite a scrivere nei commenti, ricordatevi che è perché state cercando di fare login con l'account Credem, se siete di Credem. Quindi fate switch su un account personale. Le domande le potete fare in italiano senza nessun problema, traduco io. Don't be shy, non siate timidi, mi raccomando, sfruttiamo l'occasione. So I will switch back to English to introduce Margaret. The idea is that when you look for startups, you are not alone. There are people and places where you can that can help you in finding the startups, good deals, and so on. We have found, thanks to Franklin, this beautiful place in the Silicon Valley. Well, I've never been there yet because you're not allowed to fly to the US, but I hope to go there soon and meet in person Margaret. And I will leave the stage to Margaret. Welcome, Margaret, and thank you for being here, even if it's very late in the US.
Thank you so much, Piergi, and thank you so much. Buongiorno is probably the only Italian I'm going to speak today. But thank you for the opportunity to speak with your team and also share some of the innovations that we had put together over the past 2 years. As I was thinking about this event, when Piergi reached out to both Shankar and myself to come and talk about first what we have done inside Franklin Templeton with working with early stage startup companies. And then second, really when Shankar comes on board and take a deeper dive into the startup he created based on his experience and his background, it reminded me how do we talk about innovation? Innovation is such, there's many ways to talk about it, but related to the theme today, I thought I'll put on a little bit of entertainment and a little bit on the theme of innovation breakfast, and focus on my time when I was actually in Italy, and my family traveled there before COVID, had such a wonderful time. One of the most memorable event that we participated in a family together was actually a cooking class. We took an Italian cooking class. We learned how to make pasta. We learned how to make the sauce from scratch. And it was so unbelievable, so different from what we know as pasta in the US, and going to a restaurant and making our own pasta. So how do and then this idea of relating to the theme of today I was thinking, how do we explain the innovation that we put together over the past 2 years at Franklin Templeton? So I had a little fun with it. I'm going to share some slide, and it related to that theme of, let me just open up my screen share, of sharing our innovation, sharing our best innovation secret sauce of the Silicon Valley. And with that, this is something we put together at Franklin Templeton. Today, I wanted to share some of the thoughts, how we put together these best recipes, how we find some of the most talented startup in the ecosystem, and then bring them into our environment. We opened our own restaurants. We invited these really talented startup chefs into creating this secret innovation sauce that we have in San Mateo. And then we can talk a little bit more about what that is. So with that, I'm sharing with you the best innovation sauce, some regional recipes from Silicon Valley, and then hoping to have a dialogue with the team. One thing we did do is that with this, we started to think about what does that look like when we go out and start shopping for startups. There's certain key areas when we think about innovation within our firm. In 4 verticals, we look at investment management. So really things that are enabling our investment management process and life cycles, including big data, alternative data sets, artificial intelligence, which pretty much incorporates machine learning, natural language processing, AI, ESG, risk analytics, portfolio construction, compliance. We recently added some new ideas in there, including compliance and consumer tech and prop tech. These are big themes that we're seeing occurring in the marketplace, and these are a new addition to these verticals. And to continue on with our focus area, it's fintech that we see in disrupting distribution of products and services, and how we interact with the clients. So these could be collaborative tools through financial wellness, also offering different types of alternative crowdfunding platforms, as well as innovative way of thinking about new products and services for our clients. Then lastly, as we start looking at our plan, it also includes operations. So a lot of this should be captured as things that creates more transparency and efficiencies for our firms. One of the major technology theme we're looking at is blockchain. Blockchain is a great enabler, but how does it really apply into creating more transparency or lowering the cost for our firm? So there's a lot of fintechs utilizing blockchain as a core part of the disruption, for the financial institutions. As I want to share with you a little bit more is, how do we actually went out to shop for these quality companies? It's amazing how rich the ecosystem is out in the marketplace. Last year alone, we over the past 2 years, we looked at more than 500 startup company. With that, we actually have deeper engagement with about 195 companies. And what does that mean? Deeper engagement meaning that beside the initial curating and looking at the possible good fit within these 4 verticals, we started to have a deeper conversation through proof of concepts, or even consider an investment in 195 companies. Of that, roughly about 7 to 8% move into active engagement. This active engagement bucket includes fintech startup companies that we have curated and moved them into our incubator program, our 2-year incubation program, and also included Series A and Series P company that we invest in, and that are more readily available and ready to tuck into organization through proof of concept. So we both invest in make strategic investment in early stage company, as well as incubate them through an incubation program that we have in San Mateo. So maybe I'll pause if there's any questions or comments on how, why do we work as startups and how do we work as startup at this point?
Okay, here I am. So the first questions, I don't know if you are going to talk about it later, but one question that I received is, how do you select startups? I mean, what's the criteria and the way in which you decide that a startup is part of your ecosystem or your flow and so on?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's 4 things when we look at a startup for our incubation program. I'm sharing with you what is exactly that program is. It's a 2-year program. It's one of the deeper incubation programs that's out in the marketplace. The reason we believe 2 year is a good time frame is because you need some time to get to know the team. You need some time to understand the technology, and you need some time to test the technology solutions to tuck it into organizations. And then that gives the startup enough time to be a part of our environment, our ecosystem too. There's 4 things we look at when we consider a startup. One of them, of course, is the team, the experience of the team, whether they understand and know the industry very well, or they have came from an academic background and really know the industry through that avenue. Those experience of team is the formation of the team too, right? Not just one person. We like to see 2 to 4 people, including two founders or co-founders that balance each other very well, knowing the industry, having some technical expertise in developing the technology solution. So that's one. The second thing is we also look at, of course, the technology. What's being developed? Is it applicable? Does it create a viable solutions for a marketplace? How mature is the technology solutions? That's traction. So that's the third piece. Is it fully developed? So somehow there has to be a minimal viable product not just the concepts we're talking about, but actually a technology platform that's created. And then lastly, of course, it is the addressable market. What is the total addressable market? I think that it's not a hackathon. It's not an internal development type of tools. This is a larger addressable market, and this is an addressable market that this product potentially create disruption in the market. So those are the 4 things we look at when we look at early stage startup companies.
Okay, you said that one of the things that you look for in a startup company is the team. My question is, I mean, you come from, I mean, you work for a big company, not for a startup. How do you see the difference between how the startups behaves? I mean, in Credem, we talk a lot about leadership, about agile, about a way of doing things in a different way. I mean, you probably see with your eyes directly, because from one side you have a big company. I assume it's a little bit more complicated, more complex, and probably slower. And from the other side, startups that are very fast and very active. I mean, how do you see this difference? What can you get from the startup world to the corporate world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that when we developed this program was knowing that there's such a complementary relationship between the startups and actually the big corporate world. The big corporate world has a lot of structures, a lot of processes, but it also has a lot of expertise and subject matter expertise, whether it is in cybersecurity or compliance and regulatory. And Franklin Templeton it's a global firm, and we cover many verticals in many different industries. So with that, we have analysts, not just in financial institutions and in banking, but we also have analysts that covers utility, energy, consumer products. So that's the beauty of having these 2 worlds come in. And one of the things I put down as our secret sauce is, like, we treat our customer like family, meaning that we treat almost like our startups coming into our environment like family. We're complementary, where Franklin Templeton is getting great exposures to new ideas and methods from the startup, and the startup has this agility and this drive to be creative because they're smaller, they also can do a lot of rapid development and technique. So that's the benefit from FT having to work with startups through our incubation program. And with that, we're learning new data science approaches and data visualization. We're learning the most advanced NLP through them and data operations. We are looking at also developing these really bespoke business developed micro apps that serve us. These becomes our building blocks of the future. This vision of creating an incubator always has served us as building a firm of the future vision for Franklin Templeton. And this firm of the future has these multiple building blocks that we are ingesting and bringing into our environment. So and then we're just working with different maturity levels, right? Because the startup has a different maturity level than a more structured organization inside Franklin Templeton. I think for the startups, again, it's like the coaching and the mentoring they receive from FT advisors and mentors. Oftentimes, we'll even give them office hours like marketing and communication and hiring. These are all the services that young companies don't have, but we do have. We can bring in some talk about HR issue, as well as getting ready to get your compliance, your SOX too. Having those advisors and mentors inside an organization like Franklin Templeton is so helpful. And then we built a very strong foundation for them to be successful when they eventually operate and leave our program. So that's what we see the benefits of that. And of course, we have such a lovely facilities, free office space. How can you beat that in Silicon Valley?
I can't wait to come. Margaret, I think you have to finish your presentation, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to wrap up. Like I say, we have some great Michelin star chefs in our kitchen. We have 12 great companies. I'm actually going to turn it over to one of our Michelin star chefs, Shankar from Newnham, to give you the second part of the presentation. Thank you so much for your time. It was very enjoyable speaking to everyone.
Thank you, Margaret. I just asked the audience if they want to ask something more. I have another question for you. It's related to the place. I mean, you are in San Mateo. That's probably, 20 kilometers from any big tech company in the Silicon Valley. So in the heart, let me say, of technology. How do you see that place if related to, I don't know if you have experience with other places in the US or in Europe? I mean, how is the Silicon Valley different from that point of view from what you have seen in other places, if you have this kind of experience?
Yeah, thanks for that. For the past couple of years when we started building out this program, we had actually gone out to study other accelerators and incubators programs, what they're doing, and bringing those best practices when we start building our own innovation program. I think one thing we have seen over the past couple of years is there is a lot of talent outside of Silicon Valley and even internationally, but in the heart of it, Silicon Valley still holds a lot of the great talent and expertise, whether it is directly from the universities. We have a startup in our incubator where a professor actually took a sabbatical and started his own company on predictive analytics, right? So some of those talents still very much exist there. There's still a lot of energy. There's still a lot of money that's being private money that's flowing in the Silicon Valley space. And then there's startups wherever they are located now, despite of COVID with all their relocation, they're still kind of coming back to Silicon Valley for events, for demo sessions, and for fundraising. So there's still a lot of energy here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So you said investment management, distribution, client experience, and operation, right? These are the four verticals that you are looking for, incubating there. So my message for my colleagues here, we will soon have a look at other startups. If you're interested in investment management, distribution, client experience, and operations, please raise your hand so we can look even in a deeper way what Margaret is cooking in Silicon Valley. Okay, so Margaret, thank you very much. Thank you for being with us so late for you, and hope to see you soon there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Margaret. Ok, ora I will switch to Italian for just 1 second. Ok, abbiamo visto questo incubatore acceleratore in Silicon Valley dove alla fine abbiamo trovato Nunam. Come avete spero capito, loro appunto come posso dire, fanno crescere startup da tutti gli Stati Uniti, alcune le scelgono, altre le portano direttamente in questo luogo fisico, Covid permettendo, e li aiutano con un programma di 2 anni a crescere. Nunam è parte di questo programma di 2 anni di incubazione e accelerazione. Come ho detto, ci sono questi 4 vertical sul fintech che loro stanno sviluppando, quindi se siete interessati a qualcuno di questi 4 verticali, ovviamente fateci sapere, perché stiamo iniziando a vedere anche altre startup in quest'area. Ora passiamo invece alla startup su cui abbiamo fatto questa partecipazione. So I will switch back to English and call Shankar stage. I'm not going to introduce him because I think he is better than me to introduce himself. So Shankar, the stage is yours.
Thank you, PRG. My name is Shankar. I am the founder and CEO of Nunam. Prior to Nunam, I was with Microsoft for 23 fantastic years, most recently leading Internet of Things effort there. Prior to that, I was leading Bing search and advertising platform. Thank you very much for inviting Nunam to your innovation breakfast here. I'm very glad to be here. First of all, PRG, Paolo Magnani, Simone, Andrea Notari, Francesco Reggiani. I have a long list of names, so I should say the rest of Gruppo Credem. Thank you very much for your support of Nunam and the opportunity to work with you. I think it's very clear from your postings and your website, starting all the way from Lucho's mission down to this breakfast meeting today, that you're focused on bringing innovative and cutting-edge solutions to your clients and customers. So we at Nunam are so happy to be contributing to your success and innovation. Over the last few weeks, we have had an opportunity to work very closely with Andrea Dolza and his team of portfolio managers and analysts at the Aero Mobiliare Asset Management Group. They understand our DNA, our mission and vision very nicely. And with their great understanding of this asset management business in the Italian, the European markets, they have been able to stretch our thinking and capabilities. So thank you very much for that. And we look forward to continuing to work closely with you. Last but not least, I want to thank Margaret and Michele from Franklin Templeton for introducing Nunam to Credem and being part of this partnership process. This would not have happened without your support and involvement. So thank you very much for that. Pierre gave us this opportunity to present you at this breakfast meeting. I could take all day long to talk about Nunam, but what could be interesting to you is the problem that we are trying to solve. Why is this problem important? Why is this problem important to solve now? And how Nunam is solving this problem with the help of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So at the end of this presentation, I'm hoping that you all will be excited as much as we are about Nunam, if not more. So let's begin. I was browsing your website over the weekend, and it's very clear that you have a high degree of focus on ESG, sustainable investing, thematic and megatrend investing, as Paolo was earlier mentioning. Nunam is totally aligned with your thinking. Let me share my screen and go to your website for a second. Sharing the screen here. Are you able to see my screen? I'm hoping that you can. So what jumps out is from your website is a climate change ESG fund, followed by the health and wellness ESG, more on the next generation ESG. Clearly, There's an element of economic and social recovery that's on top of everybody's mind. Now, clicking on the Climate Fund ESG and downloading your brochure, I have the brochure right here. Though it's all in Italian, the imagery just evokes your sense of purpose. There is this windmill generating wind power, connecting to renewable energy, eventually connecting to climate change. Similarly, there's this picture of this farm indicating maybe sustainable agriculture, water conservation, vertical farming, once again, connecting to climate change. The pictures of happy family, happy planet across multiple countries. Now, this notion of climate change has a variety of different themes, notions, and trends. So why don't we look at a simpler theme, maybe, like electric vehicles. And once again, I found references to somebody from Credem, Giuseppe Rovani, talking about how the electric vehicles is expected to grow at the rate of 30% every year for the next 10 years. And this is shared by, of course, our President Biden, who wants the electric vehicles, the sale of nearly half of all electric vehicle sales by 2030 to be electric. So this notion of electric vehicles is certainly very critical and is booming. And now, how do you go about investing in electric vehicles? It's not just about investing in Tesla, Ford, GM, or Toyota. This theme extends beyond automobile companies to battery manufacturers, battery recyclers, electric power distribution, transmission, metals, mining, software companies, AI companies, and there's been a boom of SPACs and blank checks today. But today, the asset and wealth managers are challenged to create customized and personalized solutions for these very dynamic trends and themes because they are stuck with the traditional ways of looking at the investment universe through the lens of sectors, industries, regions, geographies, factors like value, growth, momentum, gigs, and SIC. Friends, the world has moved on. Whether it is electric vehicles or space economy, how do we empower the investment industry to capitalize on these mega trends and these drivers of growth? For that, we need to understand what drives growth. What makes Tesla? We were just talking about it in backstage. Tesla has less than 1% market share, which means less than 1% of the cars on the road today is Tesla. So what makes Tesla, with such a low market share, have such a huge market cap? They are bigger than the companies that we have known about, from Volkswagen to Ford, GM, Toyota. The answer is the intangibles. That's the brand, strategy, intellectual property, the relationship amongst companies, supply chain, people, places, products. In fact, 84% of the value of S&P 500 companies is in the intangibles. Now, this data is 5 years old. Now, I'm sure it's even higher. Now, how do you capture these intangibles? This is not in balance sheets or income statements, but it is scattered across millions of documents. And some of this information is coming from the company itself, such as their filings, 10Ks and 10Qs, earnings calls, press releases, patents, but also from the external sources, news, analyst reports, and expert networks. And there's so much happening around the ecosystem of the companies, from their supply side of things and the demand side of things, and the competition, the legal opponents. In fact, it is estimated that there is 25 zettabytes of information on companies and people today. And to just give you a perspective, if you save a small file with some information in it, it's probably a few bytes. And 1,000 times more is kilobytes. And 1,000 times more is megabytes. And 1,000 times more is gigabytes. And then terabytes. And then petabytes. And exabytes. And then zettabytes. In fact, there's 3 gigabytes of information that's bombarding us every second. But that's not a problem for computers. The real challenge is only 10% of that information is numbers or time series. 90% of it is unstructured. That is text, audio, or video. Now, how do we stay on top of all this information? Most importantly, how do we connect the dots across these disparate sources of information? That's an impossible task, a humanly impossible task. That is the motivation behind Noonam. That is the genesis of Noonam. Let's talk about how Noonam works. Noonam connects the dots across these disparate sources of information that we talked about in the form of a network or a graph. This graph connects companies, people, places, products, and more importantly, to the intangibles that we talked about in the form of concepts and themes. Noonam leverages artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep neural networks, natural language processing, computational linguistics to build this graph by parsing through millions of documents, including filings and earnings calls and press releases and patents. And today we parse around 2,000 global sources of news, including Financial Times and Reuters, all in real time. Okay, so you understand the graph and connecting the dots, but what is exciting is how the graph can be exploited. For instance, the graph understands common knowledge and synonymous terms. For example, Noonam understands self-driving cars is the same as driverless cars or driverless vehicles or robotic cars. It can also make the connection between the picture that you saw, the windmill blades, to windmills, to wind energy, to renewable energy, to climate change. Similarly, it makes connection between companies so that you can understand the supply chain or the value chain of the companies. Noonam also understands competition, trading partners, legal opponents, and other players of companies. Noonam helps you look around the corner and identify anomalies and risks that are lurking around but are not quite impacted your portfolio. We call this the ambient intelligence. Now that you have understood the power of the graph, you're probably ready for what Noonam is. Noonam is the industry-first AI-driven cloud service that empowers asset and wealth managers to express their beliefs, values, ideas, and convictions, and with a click of a button, discover a world of opportunities that are aligned to their inputs and to their investment criteria. With Noonam, you can create optimal portfolios that are aligned to your investment thesis. And very importantly, it allows you to track your thesis over a period of time. Noonam also allows you to upload your portfolio, understand theme exposures, and lets you tilt your portfolio towards desired themes such as space economy or hydrogen economy, or away from negative themes such as fossil fuel or tobacco. We deeply believe personalization or customization is the next big shift in the investment industry. So our core use cases are custom portfolios, direct indexing, portfolio and market intelligence. Maybe I should wrap up at this time. We have already begun this conversation with Credem, and we are looking forward to our journey together. Here is more information to connect with us. And one final note. Noonam is a Sanskrit word that means for the future. We strongly believe Noonam is for your future, for our collective future. Thank you, PRG.
Thank you. Thank you, Shankar. Pretty interesting presentation, and I love the way in which you presented the company. Okay, let me just say thank you. You started with some thank yous at the beginning. I also have to make some thank yous as an innovation team, because if we are here is because of our innovation board and our board of directors that are working with us in this trip through this strange place that is innovation. Sometimes it's working with a big company, sometimes it's working with a startup company, sometimes in Italy, sometimes it's abroad. For sure, it's always unknown. So thank you everyone for taking the risk with us and exploring this step. So the first question that I have is a question that Simone probably is taking from someone, saying, how can Credem accelerate Noonam in your trip to Europe? And by the way, we can enlarge the question, say why you decided to work with us. I mean, it's always, when there is an investment, it's always two parts trying to imagine if they can travel in the future together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So clearly, as I mentioned, you ooze of the type of things that Noonam believes in, right? So there's a perfect alignment. So that's one big attraction for us to readily partner with you. The second aspect is today we are highly focused on our US market and US set of companies. And our vision is extending, goes beyond US companies to international companies, particularly the European companies, and eventually to private companies. So we think that working with Credem, we could learn from you, from your understanding of the market. That could help us propel ourselves to get to the European market and the rest of the world.
Thank you. A question is, where is Noonam taking relevant data to create portfolios? I mean, which are your sources?
Yeah, our sources are, there. As I mentioned, there's a lot of things coming from the company itself, in terms of SEC filings. There are Edgar SEC sites where we pull in the information. Patents, we get the information from the patent office directly. And there are providers for press releases and earnings calls. And we also have a provider that gives us the news sources in a nice streaming format.
Okay, by the way, you are not creating portfolios, right? I mean, can you explain a little bit more how the interaction with the tool and the human is, which are the capabilities and so on?
Right. So it is not an automated portfolio creation by any means. So we are here to augment human intelligence. We are here to support Andrea Dolza and his team members. So the idea is they create the portfolios. But what Noonam can do is keep track of the market dynamics and the ability to understand themes and the exposures to companies in a fashion that is not possible for humans. And that's where machines and artificial intelligence help. That is the answer. Does that make sense, PG?
Yeah, I hope so. SL, that the guy who, or I don't know who is the question. I mean, if we were not clear, please let us know. Enrico is asking in Italian, so we'll translate. Is your way of elaborating a structured data useful for other applications, like, for example, supply chain or something like that?
Yes, it does. So practically, some of this information could extend beyond the applications in the investment industry into the corporate world as well. But being a startup, we are highly focused, hyper-focused on the investment industry in the asset and the wealth management business. And once we have an impact and have credible traction here, then we could extend to other opportunities. But that's a good question that is helping think further ahead of where we are today.
And by the way, I love this this way of startups. I mean, the way in which they think to business. I mean, in big corporation, usually when you start a project or an idea or a venture, you think always broad. Because maybe you have the resources, you have time, and so on. Startups usually are very, very focused, so they stick to a need, stick to a question that what you said at the beginning, which is the problem that we want to solve. And I think this is a good thing that as corporation we can learn from startups. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, because you were part of a big corporation before, right?
Yeah, that actually is a very good point, PG. So definitely startups need to be hyper-focused, but at the same time, we have to keep our head above the clouds. The idea is to understand the big picture, understand where we are headed with the product, with the customers, with the market, but keep our feet on the ground, because every step of the way you can understand how you can take the next step, what challenges are out there for you to even take the next step. It's easy to keep your head above the clouds and look afar, but if you're not able to take the next step, then you're not a startup anymore. So we are hyper focused on execution, on customers, and that makes it very interesting, very nice. You have the vision and you're able to execute. So those are the formulas for a good startup, I would say.
Yeah, that's another important stuff that we are trying to invest in Credem. I mean, being sure that we have the right vision, so we have a kind of dream, and then, okay, maybe you don't know exactly the path that drives to that dream, but if you see the dream, surely you are going in the right direction in everyday decision, right?
Very nicely said. That's good.
Okay. Shankar, I a question. I don't know if it's too personal. I will ask and then you decide. What moved you as a manager, as an engineer at Microsoft to move to a startup? I mean, maybe there is someone in the company that wants to create his own startups. I don't know. So, I mean, if you want, you can elaborate a little bit on this idea of switching. I mean,
Yeah. So it was actually a very difficult decision because my life at Microsoft was great. It was a cushy job, had a fantastic charter, lots of people to help build that charter out. But above and beyond, the thing about creating something on your own from the very basic things was very appealing to me, and I just wanted to experience it. That was one thing. But there's also this bigger notion of I've been looking at this problem for quite some period of time as well. So the the problem of how investment decisions are being made. So I've been very passionate about this problem. And I was an apprentice to one of the asset managers here in the Seattle area. I took a sabbatical from Microsoft doing that. I went back to Microsoft, and then I realized there's this bigger opportunity that I could put my effort and make a difference in this world, bringing my expertise in technology and cloud and data and machine learning to help make a difference in the financial services world. So I said, I got to do it. Life is short. I left Microsoft and launched Noonam. That's the short story.
Okay, thank you, Shankar. Ivan is asking, I don't know if I understand the question very well, but I will try. In which way Noonam wants to align banks' tasks versus customer experience and customer centricity above all?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I mean, it's not very clear to me. Even maybe you can do it in Italian if you want. It says, in which way Noonam wants to align banks' tasks versus customer experience and customer centricity above all. Maybe the idea is how the Noonam can help in creating a better customer experience or putting the customer in the center of the product. Maybe something like that.
Yeah. Actually, I think I understand the question. So when you look at customers, Credem's customers, they want their beliefs and values to be reflecting in their investments. And that's one of the reasons why I've created ESG investments and climate change opportunities for them. So when it comes to customization and personalization, we are very, very customer centric. So Noonam has the right tools and processes to create those customized solutions for your customers. So that's the important part. And the other important part is also how we provide this experience. We are also very user experience centric. And if I know you have seen the application. Andrea Dolsa has played around with the product, and so has his team. And one of the things that he mentioned was, your product is so easy to use, right? That was fantastic, because that's the level of customer experience that we want to provide for our own product, so that you can build better experience for your customers.
Thank you. Fabrizio asked, I think, technical questions. He says, in which part of the IT app chain is the Noonam ambient intelligence placed? I mean, it's in the client side, it's in the back end, in the fund management part. I mean, I think he's thinking of integrating in some other ways the application and not just using the front end. So you may also say a little bit about how you can leverage the part of Noonam, not just using the application, but maybe in some other ways. I know that in the future there are going to be different ways of accessing Noonam API and so on.
That's great. So the ambient intelligence starts primarily at the back end. As we parse through information on a regular basis, on a daily basis, we understand anomalies, we understand change in the flow of information, and we detect all those things and then intersect those things with your portfolio. So that is where we elevate these ambient intelligence to the front end, to the portfolio. So we have understood massive amount of information coming in every moment, every day. We detect changes, and then whenever we see an intersection to your portfolio that could be impacted, we provide notifications and alerts to you as a portfolio manager. So the answer is the thing begins in the back end, but moves to the front end to serve the end user.
Thank you. We have a question from the head of our lawyers. It's saying, how can a legal department help in this kind of activities? I mean, talking about the relationship with startups and so on. They were very helpful during the deal closing. So thank you, all the lawyers in Credem. And how do you see this role in the relationship between corporation and startups?
Very interesting question. Yeah.
Be careful.
Be careful. Yeah. That's right. But to some extent, when you look at success of an organization, it's a team effort. Piergi, you mentioned innovation is a team sport, team effort. Every aspect of a company, either succeeding or innovating, it is a team effort. And it is like a car. Multiple components need to work correctly. It's not just the wheels rotating, it's the engine, it's the carburetor, it's the wheels, it's the you've been I don't need to talk to you about cars, so I know the story.
I know the story.
You know the story. So essentially, there are different aspects, whether how a company succeeds with the customers, with investors, with partners, with clients. All these things matter, and then if it is legal, it is legal. That comes in the picture to make things move fast, and that's perfect to understand the nuances that are able to even understand what needed to be done to protect the company from a future thing. I mean, that's all innovation in the legal side. If that can be brought together with you and I operating, that's fantastic for us. So yeah.
So I take the move fast, so we can see new nuances and understand how the future is, and then protect. So first, try to move fast, see what's happening, see which are the risks and so on, and then protect, and then we'll go on. That's
right.
I love
and
it.
The protection comes from multiple, it's an intellectual property protection to other types of legal things, and immigration aspects as well. This is huge, right? We like diversity. We like diversity of thoughts, diversity of experiences. For that to meld, come together, legal needs to be very cooperative with the whole thing.
Okay, thank you. I will, for the last 2 minutes, I will ask Andrea and Paolo to come on stage if they are available, because there is a question they might want to answer also in Italian. There is a question, say, how are we going to use it? Is there a way to extend the use of the system in other areas of the companies and so on? So I don't know if someone wants to answer.
Provo Andrea prima a fare un ragionamento più generale, poi ti lascio la parola. Allora, qui il tema, e Andrea lo conosce molto bene, è questo. Noi abbiamo iniziato praticamente 3 anni fa ad andare in giro per il mondo. Prima si poteva, adesso con Covid non si può più, almeno fino a qualche giorno fa non si poteva, per cercare di capire quale fosse un partner per sviluppare fondamentalmente 4 aree del business del wealth management: l'asset management, private asset, l'insurance e l'innovazione in quanto tale. Ora, ne abbiamo viste diverse. Franklin Templeton ci è sembrata quella che fino ad oggi aveva le caratteristiche più strutturali per portarla avanti. Quindi noi oggi, nell'ambito del mondo wealth, oltre al tema dell'intelligenza artificiale, del machine learning, che siamo appena all'inizio, vorremmo valutarlo nel mondo del robo, quindi tutto ciò che potrebbe essere un aiuto, un supporto, un progetto. Tra l'altro, PRG, sai che stiamo comunque iniziando all'interno del gruppo, e come terzo filone il tema della blockchain, della cyber security blockchain, perché anche nel mondo del wealth management si sta sviluppando questo tema in modo, anzi forse il wealth è addirittura più avanti del mondo della banca. Poi però abbiamo visto, soprattutto con la presentazione di Margaret, che Franklin Templeton però ha una serie di filoni di sviluppo che non sono solo nel mondo del wealth management, ma abbracciano anche altre aree della banca. Quindi l'idea è quella poi, se la nostra partnership, oltre che con Nunam, anche con Franklin Templeton, che oggi verrà a Reggio Emilia per fare la conoscenza della direzione generale, sarà quella che noi immaginiamo, ecco, io credo che si possa valutare anche collaborazioni, supporti ed estensioni ad altre parti della banca. Siamo all'inizio di un percorso che noi crediamo possa essere molto di valore per il gruppo. Come dico sempre, ci piacerebbe usare i muscoli dei grandi per competere sul nostro mercato. Prego Andrea.
Si restringo all'asset manager. So if I think about the asset manager in the future, 10 years forward or 20 years forward, it will be very, very different from today. So at this stage, we will use, as Shankar has said before, the artificial intelligence to help, to support the portfolio manager. So to create a new idea, to give us some idea, etc. There are some hedge fund manager in London and maybe also in US that already use artificial intelligence to create from scratch some portfolio, but for things that
Andrea, scusami,
Yes,
Paolo, puoi mettere in muto perché sentiamo un po' di ritorno al tuo microfono?
Yes, just talking about some hedge fund manager that are using already artificial intelligence to create from scratch some portfolio. But for up until now, I can't see great results. I think that there are a lot of volatility, and especially there are some problems to implement this portfolio in the real world. So at this stage, we'll not use Nunam to create a new fund, but we'll use Nunam to support our portfolio manager. So this is exactly what said Shankar. I stole his word when he said "feet on the ground." No, so let's stay on the ground and try to make one step forward. Okay.
Luca is asking. Dice su Italia, interessante questo concetto dell'intangible, potrebbe essere utilizzato anche sulla valutazione prospettica del portafoglio crediti corporate di Credem? Fumogeno, devo lanciare un fumogeno? Ho visto la faccia.
No, devo dire che così come riflessione di fondo penso di sì, però è un tema che dal nostro punto di vista non abbiamo ancora valutato e affrontato. Torno al discorso di prima, se poi allargheremo l'utilizzo di questi strumenti che ci può mettere a disposizione tramite startup, fintech o comunque tramite la competenza di Franklin, lo valuteremo. Oggi non credo di essere in grado di dare una risposta.
Okay. Shankar, the good news is that there are a lot of ideas coming, so that's what I take for the end of this event. So I want to thank Paolo, Andrea, of course, Margaret, and Shankar from being here with us today. I hope it's the first presentation of many more, because I hope that I will have Margaret with us, because it means that we are going on with more startups, and with Shankar because it means that we are going a lot of good business together. So thank you again everyone, grazie a tutti quelli che ci stanno seguendo, ci vediamo il 12 novembre. Thank you everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
morning.